Blessings and love, beautiful souls. Please bear with me today. This is my first real recording. We've done a few practice tests, but today, the wonderful, blessed Randall, Earl, and it's KAISER, correct?
KAISER.
KAISER.
Yes.
My apologies. Yes, from Alberta, Canada, joining us today to talk spiritualism, amazing stories of journeys in life, and just connectiveness. So thank you for joining, Randall. It's wonderful to finally connect.
Yes, thank you, Mart. We tried for a couple of days and it wasn't working, but today's the day. So
Absolutely.
Wonderful to meet you.
And same, like we mentioned, I think like-mindedness souls, and not mindedness, but heart consciousness souls, it's so important for us to sort of keep connecting and expanding the way that we see the world and can resolve things moving forward, which is, that's where I look at myself, and I hear from the wonderful words and wisdom that you share that you are very much the same. So it's great to be able to connect today. So would you like to sort of have a chat about where you're at right now and some stories about your own little journey there? I know that you've been a rancher in the past, and now it's obviously you have a very different journey ahead, which, we're all surrendering to, I guess.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. I mean, once you get to that word that you just used, surrender, and surrender to your own life, you're responsible for it. You manifested it, and now it's happening. So, surrender to it. And I involved myself in a lot of things, and I just kept wishing for things and thinking about how I could do this and how I could do that. And now it's happening. That's the bottom line. I'm not the kind of guy that talks about, the Galactic Federation of Light or aliens or anything. I have nothing against any of that. People have their own stories. I'm just a nature boy. Like you say, I came off the farm. Somebody said to me, today, you're a starseed that came from another planet. And I'm like, I don't know. I think I just
maybe you are. We'll see one day, I guess, when it all comes back. So yeah, who knows, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I went from the ranch to losing my ranch after trying some big business deals, and then trying to figure this whole legal looniverse out and why it is able to do that, take in excess of $1 million worth of payments and taxes and stuff from me over my lifetime in business. Yeah. And then in the end, I couldn't make my payments. So, okay, we're going to take the ranch too, okay, so I went into court 9 times and just faced them as a living man. I didn't take a lawyer or any of that garbage. And, I come from a common sense perspective. I don't adhere to or even give any credence to legal jurisdiction, looniverse talk. So you want to talk to me, like, what's your name? I'm not a person, I'm a living man, that kind of stuff. Let's keep it simple.
And I think what you're expressing is exactly where I would say 95% of humanity on this planet comes from, right? We use a common language where it comes from a place of respect and love. And if you're trying to use a language or a precept or an entrapment of words is what it is. Absolutely. It's entrapment of words because you are using a language that others have not been privy to. And as such, when people can't speak the language, you've excluded them in the process. So, I mean, that in itself is criminal because so many human rights actually go against that across the board, like just basic stuff, so let alone making someone homeless and without income and purpose in life. They are real sins against the divine laws. And so we know that. And I'm with you in that, Randall. I'm in the same process of pushing that back. There's a very strong group of us here, and we're using a very different precedent. And I can't share that here. I have to be very careful about what I say, but it's time to push back and say, look, I've caught you out in fraud. I've proven you fraud, and under this law, this way that you presented it to be, you are the ones that are now have acquiesced. So I'm standing in power. Yeah.
And I mean, call it moving into the common law jurisdiction, where I mostly went to when I got into banking. Like, most banking is well above the legal government jurisdiction, you know, like it's at a level where, you know, the people function under common law pure trust and actually autograph and, you know, show off their sovereignty, you know, like they're proud of it, to say that I'm a sovereign managing director of a trust and stuff like that, rather than talking in a legal jurisdiction. So a lot of people, you know, we talk the word Trump, or we use the word Trump as this government entity that's going to save the world. Well, hopefully he's got his shit together and he moves it back to a republic, or else get the fuck out of the way, is what excuse my language, but you know, like, seriously, we're gonna still stay stuck in that legal looniverse? No, we're not gonna do that. If Trump is the man, then he better damn well announce that it's going to be a new republic, and that the people, the republicing of the people, is what it's all about, instead of this, credit backed, you know. I don't give the credit system any more credit or credibility anymore. Like, who the heck is Trudeau? He's a person. That's what he is, you know, like, and a person is somebody with the mask on. They're pretty easy to identify these days, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if they're human at all, but there's something else. There's definitely that going on. I mean, it's like Spotto these days. It's like, did you see that? I was like, oh, it's kind of a game, really. You've got to look at it with humor like that. Otherwise, you know, surviving the craziness of all the game smoke and mirrors going on right now. And that, you know, some of which doesn't really resonate for me personally. I like to stay in what the power of your words are, and what you say, what you're co-creating in the now moment is so important. And so when there's lots of smoke and mirrors and games going on, it's not making any clarity for this new dimensional plane or this new density and realm of consciousness to come through. And so that, for me, that's where I like to stick. It's, you know, I say I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to say. These are my words. These are my intentions. And this is my actions. And they need to align. And this is where it's coming into adulthood as spirituality, you know, as a collective, as an entire planet. We need to get to that pretty soon. And I agree, you know, I have seen a lot of leaked paperwork, you know, in our community, and I have seen that republic word. I want to hear it. I want to see it now. And I think a lot of people are the same. We're kind of coming to that point where whether you people want to call this like the movie, or this needed to be fulfilled or completed, because on the other side of this, we're having to go through that change. Well, for a lot needed and required that. And for a lot that have already been going down this journey of truth, integrity, and being responsible for what they research and they invest their energy in, I think a lot are coming to a point where they're like, let's get this show on the road. We're really keen to be part of the solution and moving forward, which is kind of what you're talking about too, right?
It is. And I mean, we can go anywhere you want, Mark, because I like any man and woman story I'm attached to, and I can go there because I've working my way into the depths of the banking system, put me in touch with the Rothschilds and the, you know, Bauer family in particular, which is the top nuts in the banking family, with Barclays Bank off ledger. I'm talking, not about the top 100 banks, but that realm, and then got me attached to these. Well, originally I was attached to the asset-backed accounts, and I've been close to Indonesia, or been close to Australia, where I was in Jakarta and Depok City, Indonesia a few times, and learned a lot about this asset-backed side of the banking system, where we've been mining, as I say, for how many years? Nobody knows, because history is all a lie too.
Absolutely, isn't it just like so much of a lie that when it comes, there is so many people that just dealing with that side of it are going to, like, literally their brains are going to be liquefying, and we have to hold it strong for them.
Exactly. So, that side of banking, it includes, like, people will use language like the global collateral accounts or heritage funds or global asset backed accounts, whatever it is. There is piles of treasure, that's been mined. Some of it is kept in with safekeeping receipts and assays done on it, kept off ledger in our current banking system. A lot of it isn't even in the banking system. It's just sitting out there, So, we can build stories around that. And I think that that's where we're going to go back to. And I'm part of it. We're participating in that, moving these asset-backed accounts past unrestricted, past the central bank, World Bank, BIS, IMF system, direct into the hands of private projects, right? And that's my main focus. But like I say, do I encourage people with, cryptocurrencies and stuff? You do what you want. If it feels divinely guided, do your thing. All of that is still better than what we had as far as the central bank manipulating the flow of funds and supporting a globalist agenda that turned really sour now that all these governments are trying to frickin' genocide the people. And I've been doing it for years,
Yeah.
It's not just not recent. And I got to watch my language because we want to keep this on YouTube, right?
Yeah. We'll just like, it'll zap out. Well, I can totally relate to all of that. What you're saying there, Randall, because my memory in the past on this plane of different times in history, some of them just have never matched quite what's going on. And so for me, I was all like, this doesn't make sense. Like the timelines are wrong. And then also ancient information and wisdom that's being given to me from numerous different sources. So just to clarify, and I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Damu and the fifth element goddess, which is this community here. And the title that I was given by Damu is the fifth element goddess. And of course, fifth element is seen as ether, but it's also light, or the holder of the space and light. So going back to that, Damu is known by Taoists and many of the Buddhist faiths that she's mother of the universe. So Tao is the universal cosmos and Mu is mother. So that's where the land of Mu or Lemuria, that kind of history comes from. So I've known her in the past a lot. She has returned back to this planet and is here to restore the planet to its divinity. So I have been working with her for the last, 6 to 7 years, very consciously in communication. And then previous to that, my awareness of her sort of was in a light spectrum that I would experience, which I at that time sort of more aligned to Kuan Yin. But of course, as many we know that in each incarnation coming back into this planet, we do get a bit of a mind swipe. And so that was one that hadn't come back to my awareness until, 6, 7 years ago, exactly who she was. So, and she is connected to some of the same families that you have been in contact with, obviously, in the Asian families. For me, I have just been traveling and dedicated in service to humanity, and very much so the planet, of going to specific locations and recalibrating not only the ley lines, but certain vortices that are essential for rebalancing the masculine feminine energy and taking out dark programs, especially in very pivotal points on the planet. So that's sort of kind of my background, and where I guess for me spiritually, how it links into what you talk about, because I see the other side of the energy that's coming from sort of more a galactic consciousness and a planet-wide consciousness, and how that connects down through the systems that we have in place here on this planet, and how they need to be restored back to the people and their sentient sovereign state. Because being sentient, of course, is also in alignment with, you have the autonomy to make decisions entirely what's best for you. And in that, of course, you're always connected to divine God, source, light. And this is what this whole thing is about, this whole rebirthing of our divinity. And that's all connected to this system.
Wow. That was a lot of learning from my mind, and I'm glad. Like I like to absorb things quickly, and that was cool, because I'm trying to, you know, as you're talking, I've spoken with other people like yourself, and I'll call you a woman because you are, but you've got something extra going on there, no doubt.
Yeah.
And it's beyond my my brain's capacity, let's put it that way. I function in a spiritual sense of divine or direct natural activation, I think, where I know that God is within me and within everything else. So when I make that connection, I can feel it. But as far as memories of the past or something like that, I don't know. I think my last time around, I was just a fucking tree, and now I'm a guy, you know? So, you know,
Love
like,
trees. Trees are amazing.
but that's how simple I like to make it. So where did I end up? I ended up in the banking world, where it's all just a bunch of fucking logs, let alone trees. These guys are all, and few women, very few of them have any spiritual capacity, let alone any spiritual beliefs. They'll talk a little bit about religion, but otherwise it's just ego. You know, it's just human ego that's functioning and doing this manipulation and flow of funds. And it's sickening to see it at first when I got involved. So at first I got frustrated, but then I just got into this, okay, listen, you know, the answer is love. So just love them and feel for them, because they don't get what they're doing, you know, like they just aren't functioning in another, whatever you want to call it, dimension of love. So I started meeting people like that. And now I've met, you know, not only bank members like that, but now into these royal families that, you know, just before we started the interview, I wanted to throw that into the mix. And if you're ready for it, I mean,
I say, whatever intrinsically flows, let's dive right in. I am definitely a woman of like a leap of faith in just allowing the flow. So let's do those talks.
Sure. And I mean, you know, we wonder who is it that holds or keeps these asset-backed funds, right? And in Asia, it's, you know, I connected with Buddhist monks and you know, these Chinese elders and families like that. Probably the highest and closest I got to the Chinese family was the kin, or the yellow dragons. And that man I actually met in New York. You know, I didn't even meet him over in Asia. And he was a black man with Chinese descent. Like he looked like a Chinese man, but his skin was black. And a very intriguing man, and telling things about, you know, traveling in crafts that are man-made. We're not talking about, you know, from other planets or whatever, but just technology that exists that so many people don't have a clue exists. And we see it fly by and we think UFO or something. Well, no, there's technology that is man-made that's doing that. This guy did that.
Wow.
So then go from there to where I'm at now, and meeting and these are owners, okay, of asset-backed accounts that are held off ledger. So big enough that it could change, you know, nations. Okay, so one of the men, I won't say his name, but I'll say who he is. He's the CEO of Iraqi Petroleum Corporation. So you can imagine, prior to George Bush and Dick Cheney going over there and stealing it, you know, because that's all it was a corporate theft. But before they did that, this man and his father before him, who was the CEO, amassed money that would make Bill Gates look like a fucking peanut salesman, you know, like it's huge, but it's held off ledger or blocked in the banks, they call it, right? So this is where the restriction starts. But then if you go up to these royal ancient families that hold and keep, then the amounts are just astronomical, you know, and it's all just sitting there. But it's, you know, it's been held back and suppressed by an agenda. And I don't ever say like that the agenda is 100% bad or malevolent, because there was some movement in our society and in our civilization. You know, like Canada is a very amazingly beautiful place, and our cities are, you know, virtually without poverty. You know, like there's some people on the streets, a lot of them are there on drugs and choose to be, because there is places for them to go. And I don't want to say that about Australia, I don't know, but it, you know, there was some structure there that was working, but the limitations is what, you know, we had to move again. We have to move again to another space. And that is, in my mind, just open up some more. So we tried to negotiate with the credit system to say, look, bring it in, you know, don't call it welfare. Don't use that language on it. Everybody deserves their comfort. Every animal on earth has this comfort. They don't go into debt. So let's just do that. No, that's not going to work. Then they're not going to work and they'll all be lazy. Oh, come on, you know. So the arguments 5 years ago with these banking families that I was dealing with were at that stage. Then we started to say, well, then we're going to bring these asset-backed funds through, and to hell with this government organization that the Bilderbergs, the lower banking families, are Bilderbergs and Rockefellers of the top 13 or 12, and we'll just surpass that, you know, like just start doing it privately and looking after the people with humanitarian funds and build cities outside of your cities, whatever it takes. And that's where we're at now. And we're gonna see these things happen, and it's gonna be amazing. And they had their chance. You want to do it with the government and the credit system? We said, okay, let's do it, but pick it up. You know, there's people starving to death. Nobody needs to go hungry.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you've touched on so much of. I've seen that side of it, and again, that same resistance. Sometimes it's like, well, we need to re-educate, and we need to. The one thing that I kind of grew up in was the reality of self-organizing communities, and we speak that same language. Because I am a country girl, I grew up in the country, so we have a lot in common, which is why we drop our F-bombs and stuff like we do. You can take us out of the country, you can't take the country out of the people. So I do watch my P's and Q's a bit, but you know, I don't really make too many apologies, but every now and then I will do something like that and just say, oh, look, you know, there's a time and a place for an expression, and sometimes the F-bomb is just exactly as it needs to be. So, and I grew up in a community where we pretty much self-governed, because our PNC built our school, and all the community members came in as very vital and worthwhile contributors to the community. So not only did it feel like there was purpose, but the collaboration, and people had to get past whatever tiffs they might have had in the community, because it was a small community. So there was a lot to learn from that, because the slightly bigger the community is, the less negative interaction sometimes there can be. There's more of a buffer for people, but there's a lot of lessons in that. And so I was very privileged to grow up in such a beautiful community that was like that. You know, it had a lot of negatives too, but you take from it what lessons, and you integrate that and say, okay, so that was not great. So what's the remedy for that? And these things really worked. And because that worked so well, how do we then take it to the next level? Maybe how do we then apply it with, you know, better strategies in technology use now, and start being a lot more resourceful in the way that we are co-creating our communities, and look at them as more holistic living, you know, integrating. You and I are the same, that I studied environmental science. As much as I'm way up there in the galactic system, I'm also very down to earth. So I'm out in the garden planting and weeding, and I studied environmental science and marine science. And so for me, the connection back to nature reaffirms our divinity. The absolute same, Randall, because we've disconnected from that. We've put in systems that are disconnected from that, and it's no longer about heart consciousness. And as much as I'd like to say that everyone is going to have the opportunity to move forward and evolve, I do also have this feeling that there is kind of two types of beings on this planet, and they are the the human being, which is able to embrace that higher divinity and light that you feel in your heart consciousness, love for humanity, and others that are seriously just completely cut off and disconnected, robotic. You know, as you were explaining, in those systems, they literally can't, it's not even just indoctrination. It's like there is something that's not quite there, that it's almost like you're going to have to come back around another time, another place, and kind of either evolve past this blockage they have in their consciousness, or their non-embracing of that love factor that doesn't really serve the wider consciousness. So I think that self-organizing communities, which is what you're talking about, let's just go and create it ourselves, is absolutely what I'm on board with too. We are looking at completely setting up our own healing community, and for us, we look at the currency or the energy flow, which that's all money is an extension of energy, you know, is going to be healing. And so our healing community, it's like we're there to heal the land. We're there to help heal human beings, and find a way to re-educate each other and share that knowledge. That's the problem. It's, you know, we've put money value on everything, and instead of looking to traditional cultures, the sharing of wisdom is itself the pricelessness.
Wow. And such precious words in there, you know, sharing, number one, and community. Okay. CALM, unity. That was one that a friend of mine threw at me, and I'm like, God, no doubt, you know, like when we were at the banking level, trying to negotiate with these families, if you want to call it that. And I mean, I mainly communicated with one man, but there was many people that were involved, but the one guy was pretty high up there, you know, with Barclays Bank, and he'd get frustrated and angry, and wow, they can't even do it. He talked like they, as in the human beings, they're, you know, they need to be, he didn't use the word, but it's in the word government, it's control of the minds, you know, like, so it's, instead of thinking community and trying to guide people, it was, we got to control them, and that just wasn't working, you know. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying we, you know, abandon the cities, you know, give the opportunities there. If people can get on track, that's fine. If they want to watch what happens in a community outside of the city and then they start to get it, well, that's their choice too. I mean, like you, I grew up in small towns, or didn't grow up ever, but I lived in small towns, and I kind of saw the potential there, but there was hierarchy out there too, you know, like it wasn't always so smooth either. But the potential is getting more and more. Like I know so many, you know, community or humanitarian minded people throughout the world now, like Michael Tellinger, I've met personally, and Sasha Stone is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for 7 years probably now already, you know, and we communicate quite regularly. There's other, Jenny Byers and I were on a call just this afternoon. She's down in Tennessee. They were at a 2,000 member conference with Judy Mikovits and David Avocado Wolf. It was just a huge gathering of people, and she was just, her eyes were just sparkling. She was so happy with this organization of people. So it's coming, and it's inevitable that it's going to happen. And, you know, coinciding with this release of these funds, and then coinciding with another story, but I'll let you speak again, and then I'll take you up to another space, you know, not up, but out or wherever, you know.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, the one thing that to me, like I look in, whether you sort of put it under the same sort of paradigm of the quantum financial system, which is how I see it. For me personally, I see, I don't know if you know the movie Fifth Element, which is hilarious because it was made quite a long time ago, and so much of that story is actually part of my story. So the paradigm of that blows my mind. So, you know, the multipass, you know, like we have this multipass, and this multipass is our pass to the whole cosmos, from this planet to all, which has got the quantum financial system, as I get all of that, and how it's it will be eventually a karmic credit system. Like, it's like the more that you are able to give to the collective consciousness, because doing good deeds needs to come from the right heart space. It's not, I'm gonna rack up the credits. It's no, it's like service to self and service to others is seen sometimes separate. And for me, I've sort of been working with a lot of my meditation community and saying service to self and service to others should be the same. It should be completely integrated, because what your purpose is what you should be giving to humanity, because honoring self is honoring collective consciousness. And this is where I think this paradigm of duality, you know, service to self, service to others, it's like service in the greater good, full stop. And that's both. And it shouldn't be just, oh, it needs to be 50% service to humanity. It's actually should be 200% if you're that kind of person that's driven, and 100% for everyone else that wants to just get on and have their happy life, but also contribute and be there for others. You know, I think that we need to, like, in the way that, you know, developing language, we have a responsibility to be really precise with our language, because it's so powerful and so underestimated about how that heals us or it can destroy us. And so in with my healing clients, you know, I when we talk about affirmation and EFT and tapping, and then shifting coding that's been very negative kind of programming, I guess, to a healing or integrated process as a functional human being, teaching that words like surrender is the best way that you can allow a process of not fighting whatever is no longer working. Anything that you've taken on that's external, it's not authentically yours. So surrendering that off instead of let go, let it go. Well, when you let something, you're renting something. A let is something that you borrow. So again, you know, precise language, you know, like, and release. Or when you're leasing something, again, you're borrowing something, you're paying to keep something in a cycle. So to release something is actually to re-borrow something. So I keep teaching, you know, the best I can with people. And it's not so much teaching, but guidance. Listen to your words. Let that be your own empowerment. And the only, you know, guru we need is our higher consciousness. There is nothing externally that we need as far as our guidance to how we move forward. It's just finding a way to have that calmness. You know, we talk about that, you know, whether it's a type of meditation or walking in the forest or going for a swim at the beach, and allowing that flow to come, get out of your own way, out of your head, and allow that wisdom to just intrinsically hit your heart chakra. You know, like it hits your heart, you feel it, and you're inspired by it. And that's where true consciousness alignment comes from.
Beautiful. You know, we mentioned quantum financial system, and there's a word too. You know, finance still relates to lending or borrowing or something. So I had a call one time with Charlie Ward. I think it was last spring. We had a good visit, Charlie and I, and we were using that language. And then I said, you know, it's more, I'm dedicated to the phrase working with and not against. Okay. So what we have now, mostly banking conversation wise, is SWIFT. So the Society of Worldwide Interbranch Financial Telecommunications. So when we say we're going to switch to a computer program called quantum financial system, then I think that's in terms of something has to be destroyed for that to happen. So I don't really go along with it. So I just say, okay, we can bring quantum consciousness into the system we have. If we want to eventually move away from SWIFT and call it, you know, quantum financial system or whatever you guys want to call it, well, then that's a transitional thing, you know, like let's move it there. But the basis is injecting into the banking system integrity, love, sharing, and quantum consciousness, you see? So it's like, it's already there and it exists. So let's just inject that love into it and that consciousness into it. And then we can grow. And whatever name you choose to put on it after that, if you want to call it Kim's system, like Kim Gagoan and I we were quite close for quite a while, but she thought I was kind of a nutbag from the bush. So she'd lost interest in me.
Well, it's a bag of nuts here, buddy. It's you and I both from the country, so that's all good.
But it was a great growth for both of us, and whether she admits it or not, it doesn't matter. I think it was a growth time for me while I was hanging out with her online. I never went down there and met her or anything, but we had 3 or 4 months, and then we continued to communicate for quite a number of months after that. But you know what? The place I'm at now is just continuing to inject that love into every banker that I talk to. Like even if the old guys that are not the old guys, but the ones that are talking the Swift messaging or the credit manifestation system, they'll still contact me almost daily. I get messages from bankers all over the world, and they'll say, "Well, that was not working so good, but I love you." Like just.
I think you nailed it. That I agree. The QFS, on like a conceptual idea, absolutely. I call it the QC, which is the quantum, or QS, which is the quantum system, because to me it should be that means it's instantaneous. It doesn't require anything else to be a filter system other than the fact that you are able to be completely autonomous in the choices you make. And that's what I see, and I've had that vision for a very long time. Just to put it in context, whether this is pretty out there for you or not to comprehend, that you obviously have done a lot of delving around in different areas and with lots of people. About 7 years ago, I time traveled, and my consciousness left this time and went 300 years into the future. And it's very strange how I had to go 300 years, not 30 or 50 or anyway, so 300 years into the future. And as I was coming back, and I was there for a very long time, I remember that I had lived quite a lifetime there. And I had somehow manifested the physicality as a reflection of what I am now, but slightly older. And then when I returned, it took about 3 days to have a realignment of consciousness, because I was so horrified at having to come back to this time, because what I saw in the future was I had this energy within me that obviously had to be imprinted. And it's about coding, we all come in for our own purpose. And so for some reason, I went 300 years into the future. And when I came back, they were mind swiping me. So I wouldn't remember everything, because life would be way too disappointing coming back, I think, in all honesty. So they were mind swiping me. And as I came through the last, what you would call time continuum wormhole, I saw these angelic beings that were doing like a last mind swipe. And then they just said, "We can't let you remember it all, but we want you to know it's now time for angels to walk the planet again." And as I woke up, I had tears in my eyes and think, these are talking about higher consciousness beings, and this is what we need to allow ourselves to align to as well. Our highest consciousness, our rainbow body light that we've had in the past and we're having to come back to. So for me, I get the quantum of that because I feel like I'd already experienced it for some reason. So I just felt that, like I said, the multipass, this is what kind of existed. And I don't even think it was on a card. It was more like a crystal. And the crystal, it was like a crystal that had all your information and data. And it reminds me a little bit quite some years ago, I was in contact with gold, not from this planet. And I was channeling what the purpose of what each item was and kind of cataloging it for some of those people in the past that we've talked about from the families. And so there was a couple that were on there that were still what you call communication devices. And I said, well, these are communication devices, and this has and again, trying to get your head around that paradigm to explain to a person that this piece of gold is a communication device and somehow it's able to communicate to something else is quite profound. And other objects that had different coding. So we are coming back to that because we did have that ancient knowledge. Again, we talk about how history has all been concocted, lied, the amount of planetary resets we've had, with the mud flood. There's others, the Great Floods, and then, Mu or Lemuria when it was taken from our plane. So there's all of those things that we need to sort of, as a collective, realize that once we are given the power of the truth, completely unadulterated, really, I think we have to be, because then we can only determine what we need to take as our lesson individually. You can't have it watered down. We can't really have it sort of candy coated. If this is what's happened, and these things happened in 200 years ago, and a whole civilization was wiped out with purpose. For what purpose and why? These are things that need to come through, because this is where we need to learn from this and become adults about it. Because only sitting down and working through these complicated situations can we really go, well, we can't let that happen again, or how do we never allow that to happen again? Because not only just we put measures in place, but we change our consciousness, and that's what it's about.
You betcha. I mean, the consciousness in it, the consciousness is simple. It's about sharing and love and peace and joy. Those kind of simple words, that's consciousness. Otherwise, it's control, and and creativity always comes on the conscious side. You can't control someone and then expect them to be creative. It never works. And I think that's what failed for these banking families that were making these attempts to manipulate and exploit. I don't like to use the word control, because they were just manipulating and exploiting the flow. And now they've pretty much thrown their hands in the air. Like, it's the New World Order, so to speak, is gone. Like, there's no leadership anymore. All that's left is a war in the minds of the people that exist as to make choices, So these inside central bankers who are getting arrested left, right, and center because they're not making good choices, and there's nobody there to guide them or control them anymore. So they have the choice. They could be making good choices. The guy in Romania last week, they had to arrest him. And I find that sad, because it's so simple. It's just allow the damn thing to flow. Like, what are you doing? You can make that choice. It's that simple.
Sorry, yeah, you go.
Well, I kind of want to go into this because I think it'll intrigue you. And I got a message back from this man just before our call. So I thought, this is too divine. And I wanted to bring it out. I'm not going to use names, Mart, because they're people that are still not ready to expose themselves, right? But it was too much good timing to get that just before our call tonight this man. Yeah. So if you can imagine, let's just go into the world of the Commonwealth for a moment here, because you're in Australia, I'm in Canada, which is supposedly this Commonwealth, right? And Commonwealth being under a queen, it's fairy tale story as it is. And this old girl and her family have been hiding for years, saying they're British and Windsor and all this. Well, they're not. They're Prussian, and they're actually, banking family members. They're not royal family members. And when I say royal family, part of that, at least part of it, is families that ancestrally are related to Jesus Christ and Mary. And I deal directly with one lady in South America whose ancestral lines go back to Sarah, who is, the son or the daughter of Jesus and Mary.
Jesus, yep.
And then this guy that I want to tell you about that messaged me tonight, I reached up above this lady, and it pissed her off a little bit when I first did it. But I said, well, then, share more truth, because I don't stop. Like, I'm here to find out how to fix this world, you know, like, and the world being the construct of humans. So she got over it, and I still communicate with this guy, and he sends me a message. It's like, where are you? You know, like, it's been a week or two, and I'm like, well, what do you want to chat about? And he's telling me about this coronation that's going to happen now, and they had a little bit of a hiccup with the Orthodox Greek Church, or Russian Greek Orthodox Church, which is the other Christian, or Christ I am. I like that word because the N should be an M, really. It's Christ I am, that church. But the other one, the Roman Catholic one, was obviously, you know, filled with fallen angels, if you want to call them that, whatever the hell those poor old popes are.
That's a polite word, I think.
Thank you. And I try to be polite because I just feel sorry for the people, you know, like the system has entrapped them. And whether it's the Pope or even old Queen Lizzie, you know, like she doesn't really know. And I think she was more, you know, she was being run by the Lord of, or the Lord Mayor inside the city of London, which is the banking center, and her lizard husband, Philip, who was part of this New World Order gang with George Bush and the gang, George Bush Sr. And I mean, all kinds of other names. And I don't want to even call them the bad guys. You know, they're just crazy bastards is all.
They're completing their part of whatever this evolution is. That's how I look at it.
Thank you. And playing their role out. You know, they're if we wouldn't have a story of a good guy or a bad guy without a bad guy, you know, like, we wouldn't have anything. What are we going to do? So we got to ascend, and we got to keep moving forward. But this fellow that contacted me, and then we had a quick little chat, and it's just text messaging because his first language is Russian. He is, I'm going to blow the lid off this one right now. He's another son of Princess Di. So when what's his name? Her husband, Prince Charles.
Charles.
So Charles was going to try and bring some royal blood into this banking family, this Prussian family, right, that they call the Windsors. And this was all planned. They were going to do this, you know, but he found this little honey over here in America, but she was a Spencer, and Spencer's leading back to a,
oh my gosh.
That's okay. I just have to, there, I'm back.
Okay.
My battery's running low.
Getting slow.
It'll be good for a while.
Yeah.
But
so,
anyway, this
wow.
young Spencer girl who was, you know, had a baby, okay? And before the marriage or any of that kind of stuff. And this young fella was born special. I'll just use that language, not to say too much, but he's very spiritual, highly spiritual. And he was, I don't know, like, my brain is a little bit autistic, and I use the word autistic, you know, artistic or whatever. It's just different, you know, like, I kind of feel like a fucking alien a lot of times because I start talking and people can't comprehend what I'm saying. So is it moving faster, whatever it is? But this guy is like that, and he's very spiritual. And he's the son of Diane and Charles.
Wow.
But they moved him off to Russia right off the bat because of his specialness, I'll call it, rather than any other word, because he wasn't going to be accepted in the community because of this specialness, right? And that's as far as I can take it publicly. Like, I don't want to, you know, make people believe that he's some weirdo or something. He's just special.
That's incredible.
And this man is the master of what we are referring to, and these other people that I deal with in South America are part of this, a dynastic or divine order of Santa Maria. So when I say that, we think of the term New World Order. Well, now we're getting to a divine order, and a divine order of people that are related to the Jesus and Mary story. So this man, his genealogy goes back to Joseph. So it's beyond, you know, Jesus. It's to the Joseph side of the family. And I mean, you can believe me if you like, and whoever's watching this can believe me if they like. It's up to them. But this is where I've gotten to, and these are the people that I communicate with, and they are fully in favor of this divine order still going to have some kind of transition down at the lower government or republic levels, but all thinking in terms of what I bring and what I talk to them about being comfort for every human being and projects that are beneficial to all that do no harm, period. No more of this control and manipulation of the flow of funds through these ridiculous governments. So there you
Wow.
go.
Wow.
A little fun for you.
That is amazing. And you know what? Those that know me and have comprehended some of what I've leaked or disclosed here, my past life was with Yeshua, Jesus. So when you talk about bloodlines, I remember the 3 children at the time. And then people that I have met that are connected to this as well, that have, I believe, some of that bloodline that they don't know about, or they've been hidden or tucked away, I would say. So this is such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that was kismet, the divinity of you getting that call just before we talked is amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to sort of wrap up the recording and we can keep chatting, but thank you for your time, your energy, your love, brother. And I hope we can do this again, week or 2, whenever that works, and keep this beautiful energy flowing and high vibes too, like people hear such beautiful stories and it helps them reconnect back to their own divinity, their own positive lines.
And it's all positive stories. I mean, people will say it's a story right now. Well, we are participating in the manifesting. So the paperwork, the design of the seals and the design of the certificates, I'm participating in that right now. And they're going to be ready to release this to the public very shortly. In fact, it's already sneaking out on some pages, and I'll share one with you after we get offline. And you can go and take a look at it yourself, because this lady is actually starting to expose it. And so few people will even believe what we're saying that it doesn't matter, like, okay, fine.
Wow.
We're moving there. So
bless you. Thanks, Randall. We'll finish up here and we might continue our chat.
Can I say something? Or did you shut it off?
No.
I love to always say the same thing at the end of each call, because it is the way to reset the subconscious, is repetition. So with peace, harmony, love, abundance, and freedom for everyone and everything every day, on Mart and Randall's mind, abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria. Thank you so much, my dear. Nice to meet you, and we'll catch up again soon. Blessings to all. Much love. Thanks, Randall. Thank you.